Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world. With self-care strategies from Chinese medicine, functional medicine, Ayurveda, neuroscience, and beyond. I'm your host, Brody Welch, a licensed acupuncturist and transformation catalyst, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity. I'm your host, Brody Welch, a licensed acupuncturist and holistic health coach. And today we're going to be talking about the science of slim, why diet and exercise will never be enough, and what it actually takes to lose weight, especially if you are a woman in perimenopause or menopausal years. You're definitely going to want to tune into this episode. I have Dr. Kyrin Dunston as a guest today. She is someone who herself lost a life-changing 100 pounds and healed herself from chronic disease by addressing the root causes of her being overweight. And her personal transformation led to a professional one where she left OBGYN practice in 2011 to pursue helping women heal with a revolutionary type of natural medicine after being trained in anti-aging, metabolic, and functional medicine. As the host of Her Brilliant Health Secrets on YouTube, Dr. Dunston educates and inspires women to take control of their bodies and their lives and to thrive in menopause, not just survive. I had the privilege of guesting on her show, Her Brilliant Health, a while back, and I'm delighted to welcome her today to A Healthy Curiosity, Dr. Kyrin Dunston. So happy to have you.
So happy to be here, Brody. Thank you for having me.
So I know that I would love to hear about your personal story, how it is that you lost that 100 pounds and what you discovered was the root cause for you.
Sure. Well, I was a very busy OBGYN delivering lots of babies and doing pap smears and surgeries, and had a very successful practice. And people thought that I, quote unquote, had it all. However, everyone could see that something was wrong because I weighed over 240 pounds. And at my worst health, I had chronic fatigue where I basically just slept and worked. I didn't have energy for anything else, even though I was a wife and a mom. That was really my existence. And I also had something called fibromyalgia, where I had pain in my body in various places every day. I suffered with depression and anxiety, and my hair was falling out. I had no sex drive. And so my health was really in a shambles. And here I'm supposed to know more about women's health than anybody else because I'm board certified OBGYN. But I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me and how to fix it. And neither could my doctor. I would go to her and I'd say something has to be wrong. And she would run tests. I think we checked my thyroid at least 10 times and it came back, quote unquote, normal. And she would say, finally, after about the 10th time, she said, Kyrin, there's nothing wrong. You're fine. Please stop with this. And
You're
just
fine,
went home.
Except you're anxious, depressed, in pain. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was so demoralized. And I thought, if this is what life is going to be, I don't even know that I really want to live it anymore. But I didn't have a choice. I had to keep putting one foot in front of the other and supporting my family and taking care of my patients. And I also had noticed that my patients, who are all middle-aged women like me, were suffering with similar complaints that never seemed to really get better. And I would give them a fistful of prescriptions, something to sleep, a birth control pill, antidepressant, and they never really regained vitality. They never really got to their ideal weight and had the body they wanted. They never really had the energy they wanted. They never got off the prescription medications. And I was saying to my colleagues, are we really helping anyone? And they thought I was crazy. I said, of course we help people. And I started really doubting that because not only was I suffering, but my patients were suffering. And then through a series of what I consider to be miraculous events, I discovered this thing called functional medicine. And when I learned about it, my truth meter went off and said, this rings true based on everything I had learned in medical school about how the body works. It talked about using special tests to look at sex hormone levels, to look at cortisol levels. It talked about reading your thyroid test, not for normal, because that's what 95% of the population has. And we all know that the majority of people are not healthy. 60% of us are overweight and obese. So right there, that tells you we're not optimally healthy. So it talked about using optimal values to read whether your thyroid is healthy or not. And I had low functioning thyroid, although I didn't have a thyroid disease. And the mainstream tests and doctors said, you're fine. I didn't have optimal thyroid function, and there's a huge difference, and I want everybody listening to really hear this. There's a big difference between your normal, quote unquote, normal, and you don't have a disease, and you're functioning optimally or you're not functioning optimally. So that was actually the first discovery I made when I did the right tests and I read them the right way, is that I had low thyroid. And then I did the salivary hormone testing, and I discovered that I had a progesterone deficiency, and it just went on from there. So then I was kind of like Hansel and Gretel, following the breadcrumb trail, and I would go to a conference and learn about a test and do the test on myself and then treat what I found. And then slowly but surely the weight started coming off, my energy started coming back, my mood improved, my hair started regrowing. And after 2 years, I had lost 100 pounds, and I looked and felt 20 years younger. And it just transformed my whole life. And then, of course, my patients' lives. And then I had a professional transformation, because I knew that giving people pharmaceuticals to mask their symptoms was not the answer to helping them heal. And so I retired from OBGYN nine years ago. And this is what I've done full time.
That is such a powerful story. And I think just a few things that stand out to me hearing it. First is the empathy when you said that, like, wow, if this is what life is going to be like and nobody can give me any answers and I just have to accept this, then, like, is this even a life I want? Like, that is heartbreaking to me. I mean, because you are obviously a well-intentioned, intelligent, practicing doctor, and so you would think, like, okay, well, here I like, if anyone should know how to fix this, I should be able to, right? Or I should
Yeah.
understand how to fix this. And so maybe there aren't any answers. And to me, that is where conventional medicine, is failing women, because no woman should feel like, okay, I feel like crap. I have all these symptoms that I can enumerate, and everyone is telling me, oh, well, you're within normal limits, you're fine, or like that. And that is, I think, I hear this not infrequently from women being frustrated to be taken seriously by their medical professionals. And I'm sure your doctor was well-meaning as well. Like that
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been working with this person if they weren't someone that you trusted and someone that you thought had your best interests at heart. But it wasn't. It was just about looking through a different lens.
Yeah, it's really a shame, because they take smart, bright, well-intentioned people and put them through tremendous training to learn about the beautiful way that the body works. And then we go to residency and we're told, do what I do, because that's how we do it. And it becomes all about pharmaceuticals and surgery, drugs and surgery. And so I don't blame doctors, because I practiced that way for over a decade, because that's what I was taught. And we really are caring individuals, and we're all doing the best we can, and we're doing what we were taught to do. But when you're in a system that is a for-profit healthcare system that has the financial interests of the pharmaceutical industry, the health insurance industry, and the medical industry itself, and everybody's prospering and making money off of illness, you're not going to get solutions that are going to cure illness, because then everyone would be out of a job, unfortunately. And and the pharmaceuticals, there are some wonderful, groundbreaking, life-saving pharmaceuticals. I am not debunking or criticizing pharmaceuticals. We need them, and we've made some life-affirming advances in terms of healthcare over the past 100 years. However, we've thrown everything else out, all the folk medicine and Chinese medicine and homeopathy and all the other healing tools that actually heal at a root cause level and create vitality. And we've just settled for a substandard level of symptom management because it's working kind of for people. So, and I could go on and on about this, but the bottom line is that if you want a higher standard of care for yourself, if you want to get to your ideal weight, if you want to have energy and vitality like when you were 20 and not be on prescription medications, you're going to have to take it into your own hands and invest the time and energy to educate yourself about what you need to do. And that's why I do the things I do. It's why I have the podcast. It's why I do the YouTube videos. It's why I speak on podcasts, is because women need to know that there's another standard of care available to them outside the doctor's office, where it's not normal for them to be tired and gain weight and have no sex drive and be depressed and anxious as they age. And they need to know that as they're in perimenopause and menopause, that you can feel as good as you did at 20 and look as good as you did at 20. And you just need the right tools that you're not going to get in your doctor's office. And so you just have to take matters into your own hands.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's really important for people to know that there's more than one way of looking at the body, and that statistic that it takes an average of 18 years for the latest research to trickle down to the average practicing physician. It's like that really the people who are practicing functional medicine and people like you who are sort of re-educating yourself in a new way so that you can help patients in a different way, is that this is happening. And so whether that means advocating for the right lab tests or whether it means getting connected with a practitioner whose sole focus is looking through this different lens, can be really critical. I'm wondering, like, for people out there whose interest is piqued, we've talked about in the program before how there's a lot more to weight loss than eat less and exercise more. I'd love for you to help us unpack that and understand that a little bit better. What else is part of the weight loss picture?
Right. So that's the eat less, exercise more, calories in minus calories out is the thermodynamic theory of weight loss. And that may work when all systems in your body are optimally functioning at a certain point in your life. But once you accrue a certain amount of imbalances, your body becomes a very complex biochemical equation that uncouples the relationship between calories in and calories out, meaning your body's going to hold on to more of the calories that you eat, and you're not going to burn those calories with the same exercise. And so you get this uncoupling, and that's why it becomes so difficult to lose weight in the perimenopause and menopause. So, what are those factors that determine how your body handles a calorie is really at the heart of how I lost weight and how I help people, how I've helped hundreds of people lose weight. And for me, it starts with the foundation of hormones, because your hormones are your communicators in your body. You've got two communication systems: your nervous system, that's your hardwired communication system, and then you've got your hormones, and that's like your wireless internet in your house. And so if you think about the internet in your house, if you plug into the wall, you got a solid connection, you're always online, no problems. But just think about the wireless in your house. I mean, my wireless goes out several times a week. It could just be as simple that we have a thunderstorm and the wireless goes out. So it's the same with your hormones. When there's so many things that can go wrong in the process of hormones being secreted in one area, carried through the bloodstream to another, being received by the organ that's supposed to get the message, and then carrying out those instructions. So hormones are easily disrupted, and there are so many things in our environment that can disrupt them. So just with aging, aging, as our ovaries get older and our eggs get older, the level of progesterone production starts decreasing around 35 or 40, and the level of estrogen starts going up. Well, estrogen is the weight gain, water retention, PMS, I don't feel good hormone. You need enough of it to feel okay, but most of us start having too much. And then progesterone is the antidote to that. It's the weight loss, diuretic, anti-anxiety, anti-depression, sleep well, feel good, happy hormone. And so just biologically, we're programmed to have this imbalance start occurring around 35 to 40, and then really accelerated around the age of 51, when is the average age of menopause in our country. And so you've got these hormonal imbalances happening that we know are going to happen, and mainstream medicine really doesn't have an answer for that except birth control pills. And this is why a lot of the estrogen dominant conditions occur in the 40-year-old range. That's why breast cancer increases, and we've got endometriosis and fibroids and breast cysts and ovarian cysts increasing in that age range. So that's one of the first things you have to look at is the sex hormones. But I call these sex hormone imbalances the straw that broke the camel's back, because the camel was usually limping before this came along. And
What
you've
happened to
got
this
to
camel? Why is it limping?
it's limping because the poor camel has been getting no respect. And basically that's your cortisol, your stress hormone. I call it Queen Cortisol because she rules everything. She rules your sleep-wake cycle. She rules your weight. She rules your immune system, whether you get sick or not, whether you get cancer or not. And most of us are inundated with stressors in our environment, right? So psychosocial stressors, job stressors, money stressors. We're inundated with blood sugar stress because we eat too many carbs, and that puts us on the blood sugar roller coaster where our blood sugar is going up and down. Well, that hurts your cortisol. And then we're inundated with toxins, and those could be biologic and infectious. So that could be viruses, it could be bacteria, it could be parasites, fungi, things like that, or molds and mycotoxins, and then also the chemical toxins that we're inundated with. And so we have all these insults that we don't address because, in my medical training, I was always taught, oh, the body handles that. Or just make sure you're pooping regularly and peeing, and that's how you detox, and your body doesn't need any help. And that is a lie. Right? That might have been true 200 years ago, but we had the Industrial Revolution, and there have been 85,000 new chemicals introduced into the environment since then. And
Keep up, liver. What's up?
Right? Like your poor liver. It has that's probably what the camel is. The poor camel is the liver.
Right. So the camel basically has been saddled with all these additional environmental toxins.
Right.
The camel has also had to be dealing with the daily stressors, and really what a world right now, right? Between
oh my gosh,
the fact that we're facing a global pandemic, not to mention things like racism, not to mention that, just so many things that are for women listening, right? Sexism, the fact that daily things that make us stressed, in addition to, it's like this steady onslaught of things that are kind of like the wind blowing your Wi-Fi out, right? Like that, things that are constantly affecting your stress level, affecting your liver's ability to detoxify, and all of that is going to have an effect on progesterone and estrogen.
On progesterone and estrogen, on all your cells.
Yes. Yes.
This is the visual I like to give. If someone goes into the post office and dumps 10 barrels of oil, how much mail are they going to be able to process and get to its destination, right? They're all going to be slipping and sliding, and they can't do their job. Well, it's the same thing with these viruses that get in the cells, or toxins like glyphosate or parabens or phthalates, or any of these myriad chemicals that we're inundated with. They get inside the cell and they stop the cells from functioning well. You're eating less and you're exercising more, thinking I should be losing weight. And your cells are like, wait, honey, we cannot even get it together to burn the fat, which when you burn fat, you make energy, and we can't, and you get rid of it. We can't do that because we are inundated with these toxins.
And it seems like what you're, if I can continue your analogy of the oil spill, which I think is brilliant, that it's not enough to stop putting more oil into the post office, right? It's not just about, okay, I'm going to stop using beauty products that have phthalates in them. I'm going to stop eating foods that are laden with pesticides, et cetera. It's not just about blocking that from coming in. There's still also work to do to the oil that's already accumulated, right, or the toxins that have already made their way into the cells.
Absolutely. And so, yes, first step, stop taking in any more toxins. So get a proper reverse osmosis water filter, eat organic food, stop buying and using cosmetics and toiletries that are laden with chemicals, use cleaning products that don't have chemicals. That's number one. But number two is your body needs help, and symptoms your are your body crying out for help to please help me get rid of these toxins. I can't do it with what you're giving me. And so it needs nutritional resources, right? It takes a lot of vitamins and minerals to process these toxins and get them out of the cells into the liver, where they can be dumped into the gut and go out in your toilet. So that's why detoxing is so vital. But I'm not talking about detox you get at your health food store and you ask the clerk, what do I need to detox? That is not what you need, right? Because they're going to give you like L.C. detox tea, and you're going to pee a lot, and you're going to think you did something, and you're going to be wrong, and then you're still going to suffer. And so one of the things I think is important for everyone to understand is you really need to take care of this like it's a serious issue, like you have termites in your house. Okay, because you can even replace your house, but most people consider that their most precious and valuable investment. Well, what are you going to do when the house you live in physically wears out? So you need to treat this as if your home had termites, because your body needs your attention. So it needs resources, and then it needs the detox pathways to be opened up in the liver, in the gut, in the kidneys, in the skin, and you need to help get this stuff out. And this is usually not an overnight process. You've been taking in toxins for however many years you've been on this planet. And it will take you some time to get them out, but it can be done. You just need to be methodical and meticulous about it.
And is this something that I know you said, like, yeah, don't trust the person, the clerk at the health food store or at the vitamin shop. This is something where you might best be served by working with, I don't know, a doctor who specializes in something like this, or someone trained in functional medicine detox protocols.
Absolutely. Someone
Yeah.
trained in functional medicine, detox protocols. There are plenty of people who aren't doctors who have been trained
Yes.
in that who can be helpful. I'm not saying I'm the be all and end all. I do think you need someone who's trained in this and knows how to check for the toxins, what they are, what the levels are, how to safely get them out of your body, and so that your cells can then breathe a sigh of relief and go about doing their job, which is burning fat to create energy for you so you can have brilliant health and bring your gifts to this world that we need. Because if you
Yes.
don't bring your unique gifts, there's no one else on this planet who can bring the gifts that only you can bring.
And the world is worse off for it, for sure.
Yeah.
If people are curious, like, about their particular status with respect to toxins, are there particular tests that they should be advocating for from their doctors?
Well, mainstream doctors are not going to know what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
that's just a caveat. So if you bring this up to them, they'll say, what are you talking
They're
about? Your
not going to
body's
take you
fine.
seriously in this case.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
they're going to dismiss
Mhm.
you. That's generally what happens. So a functional practitioner will know what
Mhm.
to get, and it depends on your history. So, and I'm not talking about your typical doctor's history where it's 2 to 4 pages and it's what surgeries have you had, what diseases do you have, what medications are you on, what allergies do you have. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a functional health history, which is usually definitely over 20 pages. And it includes things like, did your mother breastfeed you or not? How many
Yeah.
weeks were you when you were born? What homes have you lived in? How old were those homes? What kind of pipes did they have? Did they have lead pipes? I grew up in a pre-war apartment in New York City. We had lead pipes. So for, the first 18 years of my life, I drank lead. And so this all matters. So they will know how to direct you in terms of what tests are needed. So some of the tests that might be indicated, for instance, if I knew that you grew up in a pre-war apartment in New York with lead pipes, I would have you do a heavy metal test sooner rather than later. We all have heavy metals. It's just a matter of how much. Lead and mercury are the most common. Mercury if you've had silver fillings in your teeth at any time, and lead particularly if you've lived in a building and drank water that came from lead pipes. And then there are a whole host of others. There are tests you can do for environmental chemicals like volatile organic compounds, and include things like phthalates and parabens, and there are pesticides you can include. So we don't want to do every test on every person because we could literally spend tens of thousands of dollars on testing. So because the testing is generally not covered by insurance, and we want to be selective and discretionary about what we test. Some people might need a mycotoxin test if we suspect that they have mold toxicity, and that can be suspected if you live in a mold endemic area like I do in Georgia. It's more likely if you live in a place that has had water damage, highly likely. And if you have certain symptoms of mold toxicity, so we might suggest a mold toxicity test.
I appreciate that you are, sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I appreciate what you're saying about how that we all have reason to suspect that environmental toxins might be at play. And yet that there's a real value in sharing your history with someone who can help you point to what might be the most likely causes for you. I mean, we do the same thing in Chinese medicine. We look to strip off the labels of what someone's experiencing and get to what is the underlying imbalance that's likely giving rise to the things that are the reason the person is in the office in the first place. And so for some people, it's going to just seem incredibly related to diet. And for other people, it's going to seem incredibly related to stress or lifestyle. And for other people, it might seem like, oh yeah, a lot of these problems started decades ago. And so it just, and each of that, but that requires it's very patient specific, and it very much requires that looking at the bigger picture and being able to, it's just, I think, so helpful to have someone help you strategize so that you don't end up just kind of guessing, or that I feel the same way, like when people come in and they're like, should I be taking turmeric? Or like, should I be taking XYZ herb? And it's like, that is the wrong question. Like, let's back up. Let's back up to like, what is it that you want to achieve? And then is it the right thing for you right now? Or might there be a better place to put our focus? You were about to say something about food sensitivities.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Brody. And I was just going to say food sensitivities, that's another source of toxicity. Mm-hmm. So there are lots and lots, myriad tests. You really need a knowledgeable guide to help you navigate this because, and I see people all over the internet trying to give one-shot wonder fixes. Oh, take this supplement and your health will be fantastic and you'll lose 100 pounds. And that's just a lie. It's not true. And yeah, so
we would all know about that by now, I think.
I always say an educated consumer is my best customer because people who understand enough about the body and how it works and toxicity and the inputs and the outputs, then they know that they need someone to help them navigate this unless they want to go this has taken me, I don't know, decades of training to learn all this material and get my own health straightened out. And then I've helped hundreds of people through the process too. So I encourage everyone to get a knowledgeable guide.
This episode of A Healthy Curiosity is brought to you by BrodyWelch.com. Whether you are looking to learn more about Chinese medicine, Qigong, healthy habits, or get some personalized, compassionate strategy to make changes in your life, I'm here to help. You've tuned into this show because you are a smart person who knows that health does not come from the bottom of a pill bottle and that it is something that you need to do for yourself each and every day. Sadly, listening to this podcast alone is not going to get you the results you want. You got to take action, and I'm here to help you. Visit my website, BRODIEWELCH.com. When you talk about food sensitivities, I know that that's a whole other thing that people can be tested for, but I know you also flag nutrient deficiencies as a potential cause, and so I'd love to hear just how something that we might be lacking in terms of nutrients might be contributing to our weight loss resistance.
Great point. So, in that post office where they dump 10 barrels of oil, they can't process the mail because they're slipping and sliding and can't do what they need to do. That's toxicity. But what if half of the workers didn't show up to work that day? Those workers are the nutrients in the cell that do the jobs. And so if you don't have enough workers in the post office, then you're even going to get half the mail. And then you have that many fewer people to even try to clean up the oil so they can get the mail processed. But processing the mail becomes a secondary activity. They've got to clean up the oil, so they're working on cleaning up the oil. And so it's the same with the nutrients. Your cells use nutrients to make ATP, the currency of energy in your cell, and to make enzymes to digest your food and give you the energy to bat your eyelash and think a thought and make neurotransmitters and make structural things like rebuild bone or heal your stomach lining or make hair. And so when you don't have the nutritional resources, you literally are what you eat. Everything that you've eaten in your life has been taken in your digestive system, broken down, and turned into you. So, and this, you are a completely new person every 7 years, it's estimated. So if you literally are everything you ate, then you're not getting the nutritional resources in the food you're eating because of our farming practices and our denatured soil that doesn't have the nutritional prosperity that it used to, and our food processing, the procedures we put our food through, how we over process it, overheat it, mic it, nuke it, whatever we do to it, and then we eat it and it doesn't have the nutritional resources. So I'm not talking about macronutrient deficiencies where they might have in certain underdeveloped countries where they're not getting enough calories, right? Proteins, fats, carbs, and they might be somewhat emaciated. We don't have that in the industrialized world, but we have micronutrient insufficiencies. So it's the same thing as the difference between your labs being quote unquote normal, so you don't have a thyroid disease, but not being optimal, so your suboptimal function. So here you're getting enough nutrients that your body is living and you're not dying right away, okay? But your body doesn't have the nutritional prosperity to do quote unquote frivolous things like get rid of toxins.
Yeah. Yeah. So which micronutrients are we talking about?
Oh my gosh, B vitamins would be top on the list. We are so B vitamin deficient. So B vitamins and C are necessary for us to make cortisol. And most of us are so overstressed in the ways we discussed earlier that our B vitamins and C are depleted. Our magnesium, which is used in, I think it's estimated over 450 processes in the body. Most all of us are magnesium deficient, and that can be a common cause of constipation, which is epidemic. We have a constipation epidemic.
As is relaxation, right? Like that people, a lot of times magnesium can contribute to that feeling of calm, to that feeling of being able to relax on a physical level. And that it's something that obviously when we are stressed out, it can be an important thing to have on board.
It's so true. And some of these micronutrient deficiencies, you read stories where people say, I took this one nutrient, my whole life changed. And that doesn't happen usually that way. It's not a magic bullet. You have to have a good panel of nutrients, but sometimes it is that dramatic. I started taking magnesium threonate, which is great because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And I hadn't really been having dreams. And all of a sudden I'm having these vivid dreams that are really interesting. And so sometimes it can be that dramatic.
I remember when I
Mhm.
started taking B vitamins
Yeah.
after not for a long time, that it made a massive difference. I mean, like it wasn't like a cure all, but for some of the mood stuff that I was experiencing, it was
Uh-huh.
really noticeable. Like really, same with probiotics.
Yes. Yeah. And just add vitamin D is huge. Vitamin K, trace minerals, zinc, copper. I mean, there's so many. And so I always tell people the first thing you need to do is take a good broad based multivitamin mineral nutrient supplement. A lot of them have antioxidants too. And they say, oh, you mean like a one a day? No, no, step away from the one a day because it has more toxins if you read the ingredient label than it's going to help you to remove. And so for a multivitamin mineral nutrient supplement worth the price you're going to pay to give you benefit, you're going to be taking generally 12 to 14 capsules a day, or if it's a liquid, it'll be at least an ounce, because most of us are so deficient, at least for a while, we need to make that up. And for most of the water soluble vitamins and minerals, you're not going to OD on them. So now, some of the fat soluble ones like A, D, E, K, you don't want to overdo it. But nutrient deficiencies are huge. And if you've been without, and I've been on this journey I discovered functional medicine in 2008. I forget what it was like at the beginning. And really the changes that would happen were fairly miraculous when I would add progesterone or add nutrients or add thyroid supplement. So you reminded me of that.
When we're talking about people who want to lose weight and they suspect that their hormones are out of balance, in my world, one of the first things I suggest is to get a different relationship with stress because what you were talking about earlier, that queen cortisol really does call the shots, and that's probably the most important thing that in my practice that people can do the to change really everything. I'm curious if you have a go-to first step for people in sort of the perimenopausal or menopausal years, for that matter, who are struggling to lose weight. Like, granted, like wait, this is taking off the table all of the particular bio individual solutions about detoxification, about food sensitivities, about these nutrient insufficiencies. Just, is there a most common thing that you're telling your patients?
Well, number one, when you're in that perimenopause, menopause time frame, you have got to address the sex hormone imbalances. It can make it almost impossible to lose the weight if you've got too much estrogen and not enough progesterone and not enough testosterone for that matter, because that aids with maintenance of muscle mass and bone mass. And your muscle mass is one of the biggest determinants of your weight. And so that really has to be addressed. And, number two would be the cortisol issue. And I love that. Get a different relationship with stress. Yes. And so I have an exercise I take people through in one of my group programs where you look at all the stressors that you have, people, places, things, including thoughts that are stressful. And then can you get rid of them? Can you change them? Or can you change how you feel about them? So that's important. But I would say number one is the sex hormone issue. We look at men as they're in their 40s and 50s and they're not having the same struggles. And that's because they have way less estrogen and progesterone and they have way more testosterone. And testosterone is vital for losing weight, maintaining a healthy weight. They do have andropause, though, that they go through, but it's usually later.
Yes.
And weight can be one of the symptoms.
And when you say the sex hormone issue, are hormones the solution as well? Like, do you have most of your people on bioidentical hormones, or are there strategies that people can be employing short of that?
So there are strategies. If your ovaries are still making hormones, there are things you can do to increase or try to increase, I should say, the progesterone output, the functionality of the ovary. So herbs like chaste tree can be helpful to tell the ovaries, hey, wake up. It's kind of like a little slap. Wake up, do your job. However, once you pass a certain threshold, the ovaries only have so much ability to respond. And then using a reputable, I will say, over the counter progesterone cream can be helpful to balance out that lack of progesterone, but make sure that you're using a reputable brand. Now, in terms of bioidentical hormones, there are herbs you can use in women who are menopausal, who have lost the ability to make estrogen and progesterone. We actually still can make these hormones in other tissues, but the levels are so low. However, fat tissue does make one form of estrogen called estrone, which promotes breast cancer. So most of us actually have enough estrogen. So this is why you want to get a test, don't guess, because you don't want to say, oh, I need estrogen. And that's kind of the mainstream medicine's way of addressing female hormones is all menopausal women need this and take this, and it's a one size fits all pharmaceutical. And so you really want to look at the fact that there's no estriol in there, which is a different form of estrogen, and that helps prevent breast cancer and gives you a lot of the benefits of estrogen where you feel good. So some people can do Dong Quai, black cohosh. You're probably more of an expert on this than me in terms of what herbs to use to help. Some of these herbs stimulate the sex hormone receptors in various ways and can give people a lot of symptomatic benefit. But when it comes to, I want to prevent bone loss, I want to maintain my muscle mass. I want to maintain my cognitive functioning and my mood. I want to maintain my hair. I want to maintain my sex drive. I want to maintain my weight. I want all these benefits that people that have been shown to be derived from using bioidentical hormone replacement. To my knowledge, you're not going to get all of these things from herbals. And I could be wrong on that, but I haven't seen that or heard that. And this is why this is a key component of all of these kind of chronic disease protocols that are sprouting up, like Dale Bredesen's The End of Alzheimer's, and he has the Bredesen protocol, the Recode protocol. Well, he's got all the factors you need to address in terms of root cause resolution of health to prevent Alzheimer's, to treat Alzheimer's, and bioidentical hormone replacement is a key factor with that. It's a key factor with treatment of MSIDS, multiple systemic infectious disease syndrome, which I believe you guys call GU syndrome. And so it's really been discovered, you have sex hormone receptors all over your body. Most of us think that it's only about sex and reproduction, but nothing could be further from the truth. You have more sex hormone receptors in your central nervous system, in your brain, than anywhere else in your body. Well, what does that tell you? It's not about reproduction. These hormones are stimulating nerves in your brain and keeping them healthy and calming them down. Progesterone is a very good soother of brain, and they use it now for when people have traumatic brain injuries to improve outcomes. So these sex hormones have to do with your cognitive functioning, your mood, everything that's going on. So they're the communicators soothing the hardwired communicator, and you need them for way more purposes than reproduction. So people ask me all the time, well, how long do I have to take these? And do I have to take them? Well, no, you don't have to take them, and you can stop at any time. However, if you want to prevent the diseases that this has been shown to help prevent, and you want to maintain your vitality, your mood, your memory, cognitive functioning, sex drive, all those things we've talked about, then this is the best way that I know with the ginormous toolbox that I have to help you do that.
So would this be true even if women have been postmenopausal for a while? I mean, I know that timing is one of those things that we look at. And so if someone is experiencing like, oh yeah, well, I do want these benefits, is it safe?
Yes, it's safe. So first, let me address the timing. So Timing is important because when these tissues don't have the sex hormone stimulation, they start atrophying and decaying in certain ways, right? Like if you don't tend to taking care of your home, it starts decaying. And if you've ever seen a home that's been abandoned and no one's cared for, things are falling apart. And the same happens with your body. So for instance, and my cousin called me up one day and she said, Kyrin, is it true that your vagina can collapse? My doctor told me my vagina can collapse because she had just recently gone through menopause. And her doctor told her her vagina could collapse if she didn't use hormones. And
What a
I said, yeah.
terrible thing to say.
I know, right? That's a really bad way to put it. But yes, it's true. When the vaginal tissues don't have the proper hormonal stimulation, the blood supply starts shrinking. The nerves that bring sensation from the vagina start atrophying, and the tissue starts getting thinner, friable, meaning it's easily damaged. Your clitoris actually starts shrinking and your sensation starts going down. And I once had a patient who was 104 years old and I couldn't even get the speculum in because her vagina was so shriveled down. And shrunken, caved in is what my cousin's doctor called it. But whatever you want to call it, these tissues are hormonally sensitive. And when they don't have the proper stimulation, they start shrinking. Well, that's going on in your brain and contributing to Alzheimer's. That's going on in your skin and contributing to wrinkles and sagging. It's going on in your eyes and causing dry eye. It's going on all over your body. Your gastrointestinal system also depends on these hormones for stimulation and healthy functioning too. So timing is essential. You want to do it sooner rather than later, preferably in the perimenopause when women start having these deficiencies. I saw a woman recently, she actually was progesterone deficient at 42. And so that needs to be addressed so you're not starting to have these problems, and then continued for as long as you want the benefit. Now, if you've gone through menopause 10 years ago and you're already having these symptoms, is there benefit to bioidenticals? Yes. Are you going to regain those 10 years that you lost without hormonal stimulation? I think it will depend on what other confounding health issues you have going on and how they're being addressed or not addressed. And so I think it's on a case-by-case basis. But I've seen some women who had clitoral atrophy, like no sensation in their clitoris. They were anorgasmic, couldn't have orgasms because they had no sensation. And they also lost their sex drive, and we put them on bioidenticals, and it doesn't happen overnight because it didn't occur overnight. But doing that and then also using topicals in the area, and then there are actually some, I don't know how technical you want to get, but there are actually treatments you can use locally to bring blood flow to the clitoris, and you can reignite your clitoris and you can reignite your sex drive even 10 years later.
I think that's awesome to know. And it's, that the fact that these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, go so far beyond reproduction, right? They go to our brain, they go to our sex drive, they go to our ability to think and to feel pleasure. Those are things that I'd like to be doing for my whole life. Those are pretty important. To jump topics just a little bit, I have two more questions for you. One is you mentioned like the macronutrients before, and it seems like every few years a different macronutrient is demonized or fetishized. Like that it's carbs that are evil. No, it's fat that's evil. No, no, we need to eat more protein. No, it's fat. What's your take on the whole macro debate?
It is interesting that it is constantly changing, and I try to go with basic foundational truths. And I know right now fasting is all the rage. And I recently saw on the internet 1 meal a day fast. It's like
fasting,
really?
Mimicking diet, all of that. Yeah, like so much of that. When in fact, and I think about that, even just weight loss approaches like intermittent fasting. Well, if it increases cortisol for women, which can throw off sex hormones, is that a great idea? There's anyway. So I'm always curious about other people's take.
It's so true. And yes, that I tell people the first thing, everyone really wants to do intermittent fasting, and it jacks your cortisol up. And so some people can tolerate that very easily and do well with it, and others can't. So I think that we need a certain number and amount of fats and carbs and proteins to live. That is a truth that's been a truth for thousands of years.
Yes.
And we do not want excess or deficiency in any of those areas. And we want to make sure we're getting healthy fats, not too many saturated fats, and that we're getting what I call slow carbs. So lots of veggies that take a long time to digest and don't spike your blood sugar, and not a lot of processed carbs that are like sugar. And I really try to stick to these macronutrient principles that are sound principles when I work with people. I do have people who are constantly, I think the reason why people are always looking for the magic bullet is because mainstream medicine has failed to address the underlying root causes of why we have disease and why we have weight gain and obesity in the first place. And so when people don't get the answer at their doctor's office, it becomes incumbent upon them to figure it out. And they're so desperate. People are really hurting. I was in pain when I weighed 243 pounds, psychological pain, not only physical pain, but psychological. And I know there are people listening to this right now who are suffering, who are thinking, I can't go another day busting out of my jeans that I can't zipper and feeling constricted in my belly and embarrassed to go to parties because I don't like how I look, and no one's giving me the answer. And they are desperate for solutions, and they're looking on the internet for solutions. And there are people who are going to say, I'm going to teach you the way, because they're going to take your money and teach you how to intermittent fast and then tell you that's the solution. And a lot of people will get some benefit, because there are some benefits to various types of fasting. But there are a lot of people who aren't going to get their problem solved. And so I think it's very important that people who are desperate really still don't lose your discernment. And really, I always consider myself to be a teacher. That's what doctor means. And I really educate people on how their body works and make suggestions. This is what I would suggest. And if you want to do something different, well, sure, let's talk about why you want to do that. And let's talk about the science of it. And then figure out what works for yourself, because I'm sure you talk with your patients about this, Brody, that I think one of the problems is that we've become detached from our bodies and how they work and what messages they're sending us. And illness is a message. It's not a message that I have a Prozac deficiency when you're feeling blue. It's not a message that I need Ambien when you can't sleep. The message is something that you're doing is harming me, and I need you to listen and pay attention and stop doing that and do these other things. And so I really try to recouple people to their intimacy with their bodies. What is your body saying?
I love that approach. That's yes, that symptoms are messages, and it behooves us to pay attention and listen and get curious, as opposed to simply wanting it to go away. And I empathize with the desire to just make it go away. It's like both of those things. But really the only way out is through.
So true.
Yeah.
And that's how I eat now. People say, well, do you intermittent fast and do you and I say, I listen to my body.
Hmm. That's so smart, because it's like, again, there's not one right solution for everyone out there, and there may not even be the right solution for you this week versus next year. And
Exactly.
that just being able to keep up with ourselves, which also requires a certain amount of checking in and self study. The one more just kind of myth that people wonder about is belly fat. Is the root cause cortisol? Is it stress, or is it insulin? And is it something that we necessarily have to live with? Or is it both, since cortisol stimulates insulin?
Yeah. So cortisol and insulin have a real kind of seesaw relationship. When your blood sugar, that's why I was talking earlier about the blood sugar roller coaster.
Mhm.
When your blood sugar is going up, it's going to come down. And when it goes down, it stimulates your cortisol, because your cortisol handles stress. And so this is the kind of little description I like to give people. Your cortisol doesn't know the difference between you're at the end of a dark alley with a gun held to your head, someone's trying to mug you for your money, or you ate a Cinnabon for breakfast and now your blood sugar's crashing down And you can literally die if your blood sugar goes too low. So your body sees that you're sitting at the end of a dark alley with a gun to your head. You don't register it that cognitively, but your body does. And it says, oh my God, we've got to bring this up. And so it's a huge stressor. So belly fat it's about stress and it's about insulin, cortisol and insulin. But I find that people who have insulin problems, they more have unevenly distributed fat pattern diffusely. Whereas when it's strictly a cortisol problem, it's more the donut around the middle. And then sex hormone fat is more in your hips and thighs. Those are the general rules of thumb.
Yeah. I appreciate you getting into that a little bit and especially that circular relationship between cortisol and insulin and how stressful it is to go on that roller coaster ride of sugar highs and lows and crashes. I realize that we are running low on time here, and I really value your time and your expertise. I know you have a free gift for listeners that is Diet Deceptive Dozen and Lean 15 reports. Can you want to tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. And I'd love for everybody to share it with everyone. So, the Diet Deceptive Dozen, that is 12 foods that are flying under your radar that you eat every day that you think are healthy, that are contributing to your fatigue and your weight gain and your poor health problems. And then the Lean 15 is 15 foods that you need to add to your diet to improve all of these things. So, it's some simple shifts that you can make, simple shifts just today, right? What are you going to add to your diet? What are you going to take out? So no calorie counting, no strict menu plan to follow or recipes. It's just simple shifts. And I just like to share with everyone that when I lost that weight, I didn't follow a specific diet or count calories at all. I just eliminated the foods I was sensitive to, eliminated the fast carbs, and ate kind of like I'm telling you, don't eat this. It's my simplistic thing is eat this, not that. And that's how I lost it in terms of my weight while I was addressing the underlying causes. So I hope everyone enjoys that.
Well, I really appreciate you making that available to people and really a whole foods approach makes so much sense. That's one of those time-tested pieces of wisdom that if it's found in nature, your body knows what to do with it. And so and we don't eat calories, we don't eat nutrients, we eat foods. So I love the idea of just looking at food and getting a start there. I'll also have a link to your website, KyrinDunstonMD.com over at BrodyWelch.com, where people can also find links to your social media and the link to the free gift. So Dr. Kyrin Dunston, I really appreciate your time today and this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Brody.
Thanks for listening today. To check out the show notes, get on my email list, or drop me a line, head to BrodyWelch.com. That's Brody with an IE and Welch with a CH. I'd love to hear from you. If you learned something new or feel inspired to try something different in your life, I'd love for you to pay it forward by sharing this episode with a friend who you think could also benefit and give them a reason to listen. You'll be helping to create a world where we encourage each other to embody self-respect. Till next time, be good to yourself.